Okay, now we're going to talk about the body. There is a process in death that most of us fear, which is a lingering, painful death. Um, None of us wants to experience that, or not many of us want to. There's an old story about a woman, I think her name is Joyce Meyer. I believe she's a Christian author and speaker. And she was flying in a plane, and the plane started to, I guess the engines went out. Anyway, it started to go down, and the pilot came on and said, I'm doing everything I can, kind of hang on. This was a private plane. Um, so he was very upfront. And she, because she's a Christian, she began to pray, and she said, Lord, you know I love you. Lord, you know I'm not afraid to die. And then she said, but please don't let it hurt. And I thought that was so great. It probably sums up for many of us what we really don't want, which is we don't want that painful death. And in some cases, that lingering, painful death. And we do have some say in that. Andrew Weil, the physician who I think is a holistic physician, but he's an MD. I'm not sure which of his books or somewhere, but he talks about this. He calls it compressing morbidity. And the idea is to live the healthiest life possible until we die. And so to extend that time in our lives when we are healthy as long as possible. How do we do that? I think he lays it out for us. Diet, exercise, frame of mind, community. I won't even bother to go into it because he does it so well. And so really in every single day of our life, we are choosing in some regard our manner of death. We are choosing by how we live our life, how we will die. And we choose this not just physically, but also, as we talked about before, we choose this emotionally, spiritually. And so if in these three areas, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, we are living with awareness, we are living consciously, death becomes less something to be feared and more something simply to be understood as another milestone. We graduate from elementary school. We get married. We buy our first car. We maybe grow old and we die. It's a milestone. And as we begin to shift our perspective in that way and understand it as a milestone, and like other milestones, we prepare for death. If we're going to buy a car, maybe we decide that every day we're not going to have coffee at Starbucks and lunch out. Maybe we're going to make ourselves coffee at home and put it in a thermos and pack our lunch. And we save that money every single day. And then when we're ready to buy a car, we have money and savings to purchase a car. And the same way, we live our life in such a way that when we come to our death, we do so in a great sense of peace. Now, we wonder, why does it matter? Why not just take the approach of like we're jumping off the deep end into a very cold pool and you just hold your nose and go for it? And woo, the shock. Well, the condition of our soul. Because remember, our soul precedes our body and it continues long after our body. But what we experience in our body has its impact on our soul. It has an effect. And so our death has an effect on our soul. And when we die a good death, a peaceful death, I don't like putting the word good on it. As soon as I said that, I didn't like that. Because there isn't a good death or a bad death. There just is the death that we have. It's not good or bad. There's no judgment around it. But the more peaceful the death, the easier the transition for our soul. And sometimes a death that is shrouded in fear can leave a little bit of a mark on our soul. And then we're on the other side, and that was part of our experience. And that is part of what our soul does, is to, and this depends on your belief system. Maybe we are held accountable for what transpired when we were in bodily form. Maybe we are processing what transpired when we were in bodily form. Maybe we are learning from it. Maybe we are atoning for it. And I'm sure I'm missing lots of different belief systems and their perspective on that. But generally speaking, there is some awareness when we are in soul form of what transpired when we were in body form. So this is another reason to live our life in this way, so that when we come to death, we have that sense of peace, and we step into what comes next from a place of peace and acceptance rather than a place of fear. So in short, on death and dying, it begins the moment we draw our first breath, and we live our life, and how we live our life oftentimes informs our death, and even the sudden deaths. How we have lived our life informs how we will experience our death. And so just like we would work to be healthy physically, we want to do the same thing mentally and spiritually, so that in any given moment, if it is our time, we can face that with a great sense of peace.